There's a point in every man's life when the truth becomes a weapon, when the people you trust the most, your mentors, your friends, turn out to be the very ones who will destroy you. Betrayal cuts deep, but it's the silence that follows that truly breaks you. Marcus had spent years fighting for justice, but he never expected that the real fight would come from within. Now, standing at the crossroads of truth and vengeance, he's forced to confront the most painful question of all: how far will you go when everything you believed in is shattered? Before we dive into today's story, let us know in the comments where in the world are you watching this video from. We'd love to hear from you. In the quiet chaos of this city, where the rain falls like an endless shroud, one man walks with a weight heavier than the world itself. His name is Marcus. Once a bright, promising officer in the force, now a shadow of the man he once knew. The streets have a way of doing that to people, stripping them of innocence, testing their loyalty, breaking their will, or reshaping it into something unrecognizable. The city, it hums with an undercurrent of secrets, a place where people pretend to sleep, but their minds never truly rest. Every corner, every alley, whispers the names of those who've crossed the line. The line between good and evil, once so clear, is now blurred, lost in the fog of 1,000 unspoken truths. Marcus can hear those whispers, the echo of betrayal, the shuffling feet of those whose loyalty can be bought or sold. But Marcus, he thought he could hold on to what mattered: justice. He believed in the law, he believed in the badge he wore, the one that promised protection and truth. Yet somewhere along the way, something snapped. The truth became elusive, the badge became a burden, and the law, well, it no longer fit into the world he was trying to navigate. Tonight, in the rain-drenched city streets, Marcus is no longer just a cop. He's an agent, a player in a game so deep that the rules have long since been rewritten. He's been undercover for months, walking a tightrope between loyalty to the law and survival. No one told him it would be this difficult. No one warned him that the deeper he went, the harder it would be to breathe without feeling suffocated by the lies and deceit that coated everything he touched. The shadowy figures he once hunted now surround him, closer than ever. The criminals, the crooked politicians, the power-hungry individuals who would sell their own mothers for a seat at the table. They aren't just people on the other side of the law anymore, they're his world. He has become one of them. But Marcus never wanted to be one of them. He never wanted to be a part of the machine he so desperately wanted to dismantle, and yet here he is. A man with one foot in the world of justice and the other in the world of crime, wondering how much longer he can keep walking before he falls. In moments like these, the whispers of the city grow louder. They crawl beneath his skin, tracing lines of doubt through his mind. How much longer can he play this role? How much longer can he live the lie? He's learned a lot in his time undercover: how to blend in, how to hide in plain sight, how to say the right words at the right time. But what he's also learned, what no one could have prepared him for, is that every lie he tells, every ounce of truth he sacrifices, takes a little more from him, and soon there may be nothing left. Marcus stops at the mouth of the alley, the flickering streetlight casting long, jagged shadows across his face. He looks back, not sure if he's being followed, not sure if he's the hunter or the hunted. His pulse quickens as a chill runs down his spine, but he brushes it off. It's just the city playing tricks. It's just the weight of 1,000 decisions hanging around his neck like an anchor. But deep inside, something stirs, a sense of being watched. Not by the criminals or the detectives. No, Marcus knows the enemy is closer than he thinks. Someone, somewhere in the system, has been pulling strings. Someone has been watching him all along. The question is, who and why? The air grows thick with tension as Marcus takes another step forward. The night is his only ally now. He trusts no one, not even the badge on his chest. He knows that soon, very soon, his world will shift in ways he can't yet understand, in ways that will tear everything apart, leaving nothing behind but betrayal, blood, and the cold, bitter truth of a man who wanted to make a difference but was swallowed whole by the very system he swore to protect. As Marcos disappears into the shadows, his silhouette vanishing like smoke into the city's fog, the whispers continue. They're louder now, stronger. Soon they won't be whispers at all. Soon they'll be the deafening scream of a truth Marcos may not be able to survive. It was here, in this very room, that Marcos's life would begin to change forever. He had no idea, of course. When he first joined the force, the ideals were simple: serve and protect, uphold the law, and fight for justice. But justice, as Marcos would soon learn, was a commodity that could be manipulated, sold, and discarded when it became inconvenient. The door closed softly behind him, the click of the handle sealing his fate. Detective Green, a man who had seen it all and then some, glanced up from the file with a look of cold calculation. There was no warmth in his eyes, only a quiet intensity that suggested he was a man who had learned to trust a few but control many. "You're ready," Green had said that day. His voice was low, as though speaking to someone much more experienced, much more hardened. But Marcos, he wasn't sure he was ready, not for this. "Are you sure?" Marcos had asked, the weight of those words lingering in the air between them. Green's lips curled into a thin, almost imperceptible smile. It wasn't reassuring. "I'm not asking if you're ready, I'm telling you you're ready. You got the skills, you've got the heart. What you don't have yet is the stomach for what's to come, but you will." That was when it hit him. This wasn't just another case. This wasn't the kind of assignment where you took notes and wrote reports. This was something darker, something dangerous, something that didn't come with a handbook or a clear set of instructions. The job was simple in theory: go undercover, get close to the criminals, infiltrate their ranks, but it wasn't about catching the bad guys anymore. It was about taking down the very system, the web of corruption that held the city in its grip. The line between law enforcement and the criminals they chased had already been blurred, and now Marcus was expected to be the one to unearth the truth, to expose the rot from within. "This isn't like any job you've done before," Green warned him, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of warning. "You'll be living among them, you'll be a part of their world, and in that world, trust is a commodity. You can't afford to trust anyone." "One thing you have to understand," Green continued, leaning in slightly, his voice lowering to a near whisper. "This is about survival, and you're not just up against criminals. You're up against your own people. You're up against your team, the very ones you trust most." The words hit Marcos like a punch to the gut. He knew the system was broken. He knew corruption ran deeper than just the criminals they arrested. But hearing it from Green, hearing it spoken so plainly, made it real. It made it dangerous. What Green didn't tell him, what no one ever told him, was how it would feel, the pressure of living two lives. The constant game of balancing lies and truth, where one wrong move would mean exposure, where survival meant learning to trust no one but himself. Where the badge he wore, the same one that was supposed to stand for truth and justice, would soon feel like the very thing that would bury him alive. Marcos was being pushed into a world where loyalty could not be given, only earned. A world where betrayal came from those you least expected. And as the door closed behind him, leaving him alone with nothing but the weight of his choices, he couldn't help but wonder, was he still the man he thought he was? Or was this the beginning of his descent into the very darkness he was supposed to fight? It doesn't take long for a man to lose himself in the darkness. It doesn't take long for the things that once seemed so simple, so clear, to slip through his fingers like sand. Marcus learned that quickly. Undercover wasn't just about pretending to be someone else. It was about becoming someone else. And the longer he stayed in that world, the harder it was to tell where the mask ended and where the man began. At first it was easy to put on the facade, easy to fit in with the criminals who moved in the shadows, pulling the strings of the city. They saw in Marcus what they wanted to see, a tough, street-smart guy who didn't ask too many questions, who was willing to do whatever it took to make money and survive. He became just another face in the crowd, nothing more, nothing less. The city had its way of stripping a man of his dignity, piece by piece. It wasn't just the illegal deals or the shady characters that wore him down, it was the constant barrage of moral compromises, small ones at first, easy to justify, skimming a little off the top, turning a blind eye to a deal gone wrong, pretending not to hear the cries for help from the streets. Every choice he made, every lie, every betrayal, felt like a nail in the coffin of who he had been. At first, Marcus tried to hold on to the core of who he was. He still wore the badge under his jacket, still told himself that he was doing this for justice, for the city he swore to protect. But those lies started to blur too. The longer Marcus stayed in the game, the more he understood. Survival here wasn't about being the smartest or the toughest, it was about being the most ruthless. To climb, to survive, you had to make deals with the devil and walk away unscathed. Raoul's words linger in Marcus's mind. The truth won't save you, Marcus. The truth won't get you ahead. You either play the game or you get played. The lies became easier, so did the compromises. What started as one small favor for the criminals he was supposed to be investigating quickly grew into something more, a steady stream of favors, of betrayals, of moral concessions. Marcus could feel the shift inside himself, that gnawing emptiness where his conscience once resided. He no longer saw the world in black and white. It wasn't just the criminals who wore masks now, it was everyone. His own colleagues, the ones who claimed to stand for justice, had their hands just as dirty as the people they arrested. Every day, every moment he spent in this world, he felt himself slipping further away from who he once was. It wasn't just the world around him that had changed, it was him. His heart had hardened, his trust in the system had shattered. And in its place, a new version of Marcus had emerged, one who had learned how to lie, how to betray, how to play the game, but what he hadn't yet realized was that the game was playing him. There's a moment in every man's descent where he knows he's too deep to return. Marcus hadn't hit that moment yet, but he was getting closer. The descent into darkness doesn't come with a warning, it doesn't come with a sign that says you've gone too far. It happens slowly, like a slow bird that eats away at your soul. It happens when you stop asking yourself who you're really working for and start asking instead how much longer you can keep pretending. The hardest part about a betrayal is not the pain it inflicts, but the realization that it was never a question of if. It was always a matter of when. Marcus hadn't wanted to see it, he hadn't wanted to admit the truth, but the truth had a way of clawing its way to the surface, no matter how much he tried to bury it. It wasn't long ago that Marcus had believed the system, despite its flaws, was something worth saving. But as the weeks stretched into months, as the lies piled upon lies, Marcus began to see the cracks in the foundation. The system wasn't something that could be fixed. It was something that had been built on betrayal from the very beginning. That night, in the dimly lit warehouse, Marcus had stood there, just a step behind Detective Green. He had listened intently, waiting for the usual back and forth, the negotiation, the exchange of information. But what he heard wasn't just a deal, it was a partnership, one that ran deeper than just business. It was a betrayal. "You know what the problem is, Green?" Vincent's voice echoed in the cold space. "You're still pretending that your boys in blue are different from us, but the truth is, you and we're the same, we've always been the same." Marcus had frozen, his gut twisting with the weight of the words. Green's expression had remained impassive, but his eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, had betrayed him. The truth was there, clear as day. Marcus had never seen it coming. "You're not wrong," Green had said, the words flowing from his mouth as easily as breath. "We both got our roles to play, don't we? You handle the dirty work, and I handle the clean-up. Same coin, different side. It had taken every ounce of strength Marcus had to not step out of the shadows and confront them both right then and there. Betrayal in its rawest form was staring him in the face, and yet he stayed silent. His mind screamed at him to walk away, but his feet stayed rooted in place. He couldn't walk away, not yet. But it wasn't just green. No, the betrayal ran deeper than that. Marcus had slowly begun to piece together the truth. The people he thought were on his side, the fellow officers who wore the same badge, were just as compromised as the criminals they were meant to bring down. The badge had become a symbol of power, not protection. Justice had become a farce. It wasn't until that fateful night, when everything came crashing down, the night Marcus received the call, a call that would shatter what little faith he had left. "You've been played, Marcus, every step of the way." The voice continues, revealing the unthinkable: names, dates, deals, and evidence that implicated everyone: Detective Green, his colleagues, and the higher-ups within the department. The entire operation Marcus had been a part of was a lie, a carefully constructed web of deceit designed to control both the criminal world and the force itself. He had been the pawn, the one who'd believed he was making a difference, while in reality he had been nothing more than a tool. The voice on the phone had told him everything he needed to know. They had been watching him, tracking his every move, waiting for the moment when the truth would be revealed. And now that it had been, Marcus had a choice: expose the corruption and burn everything to the ground, or keep playing the game and live with the knowledge that he too was a part of the very system he had once sworn to destroy. Marcus knew what he had to do, but there was no turning back, no going back to the man he had once been. The city would never be the same, and neither would he. The question wasn't whether Marcus could expose the corruption, it was whether he could survive it. The game had changed, and he was no longer a player, he was the target. The truth had a way of destroying everything it touched. It destroyed careers, reputations, even lives. As he stared at the city below, Marcus realized one undeniable truth: he was no longer fighting for justice, he was fighting for survival. The battle was no longer between the criminals and the cops. It was between Marcus and the system that had created him, the very system that had betrayed him. In the end, it wasn't just the badge that had been a lie, it was everything. The law, the order, the system of justice, none of it had ever been real. Not in this city, not anymore. The moment you realize you're being hunted is the moment the rules change. It's no longer about the badge, the law, or the right thing to do. It's about survival. And survival means that you become the predator, even if you're still trying to figure out who you are in this new world. Marcus had always thought he understood how this game was played. He'd been trained to think fast, to analyze, to act when necessary, to keep his cool. But nothing had prepared him for the cold, unyielding reality of what it meant to be exposed, to be the very thing you once fought against. Now, the badge didn't just represent law and order, it had become a target on his back, a symbol of everything wrong with the system, and every step he took, every turn he made, the sense that something, someone, was closing in on him grew stronger. The hunt was on, but the question was, who was the hunter? Was it Detective Green, or was it someone higher up the food chain? The web of corruption Marcus had uncovered stretched farther than he could have ever imagined. What he had once thought was a handful of bad cops was now a network that reached every corner of the city: police, politicians, mobsters, all tied together in a sinister alliance. Marcus had only just begun to realize the scope of the betrayal, the power behind it. They weren't just after him, for what he knew, they were after him because he was the one person who had the potential to bring the whole system down. And that made him dangerous, that made him a liability. "He knows too much," Harry says, his voice like gravel. "He's dangerous now. If he talks, everything falls apart. We can't let that happen." "We handle it," Green responds coldly, his eyes hard. We always handle it. This time, we're making sure he disappears. No trace, no loose ends. This was no longer just about criminal syndicates. This was about survival in the very system he had sworn to uphold. Those who had once been his colleagues had now become enemies, the very badge that he wore a beacon for those who would see him silenced. A voice calls out and Marcus whips around. It's Jamal, the street dealer from before. His grin is wide, but there's something dark about it, something that doesn't sit right. You're in deeper than you know, cop. If you want to live, you better start running, Jamal warns him, his eyes gleaming with something almost predatory. Marcus doesn't hesitate, his instincts taking over. The predator in him stirs. This wasn't just about escaping anymore, it was about outsmarting those who had made the first move. He had to stay ahead, stay one step out of their reach, and that meant thinking on his feet. It meant playing them at their own game, even if he didn't yet know the full rules. Every move Marcus made was calculated, each decision laced with the weight of the knowledge that if he slipped up, if he let his guard down for just one moment, it would be the end. He was out of time, out of options. The hunters were closing in. The truth? The truth was, Marcus wasn't just running from his enemies anymore. He was running from himself. He had no allies, no friends, no way out. He had been a part of the system, part of the machine that had created this chaos, and now he was paying the price. There are moments in life where everything you believe, everything you trust, is shattered in an instant. The kind of moments that make you question everything, your choices, your actions, and the very people you thought you knew. Marcus was standing on the edge of one of those moments now, the weight of the past crashing down on him, forcing him to confront something he never wanted to see. The truth about the one man he never expected to betray him. When Marcus had first gone undercover, he had trusted Detective Green. Hell, he had respected him. Green was the one who had mentored him, who had shaped him into the cop he had been, the one who had shown him what it meant to serve the city, or so Marcus had thought. But now Green wasn't just a mentor, he wasn't just a colleague. He was the man who had orchestrated the whole damn thing, the very betrayal that had shattered Marcus's world. The thing about a betrayal is that it doesn't come with a warning. You don't see it coming until you're already knee-deep in it. And Marcus, despite all his training, despite all the preparation, never saw it. Not when Green had handed him the job, not when they had shared a drink after a hard day's work, not when they had laughed at the same jokes and stood side by side on the streets, pretending to be on the same team. But there was no pretending anymore. Marcus had uncovered the truth. Green had played both sides. He was just as corrupt as the criminals Marcus had been chasing all along. He had been feeding information to the mob, to the very people Marcus had sworn to take down. And that wasn't the worst part. The worst part? Green had known all along who Marcus was, what he was doing, and he had let him walk right into the fire. Green's face is hard to read, but there's no mistaking the smugness in his eyes. He's not surprised to see Marcus. In fact, he looks almost relieved, as if he knew this moment would come, as if he had been expecting it all along. I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out, Green says, his voice smooth, cold. I'm impressed, Marcus. It's a damn shame you didn't come to me sooner. I would have saved you the trouble. Marcus, standing several feet away, can barely contain the anger rising in his chest. His hands are trembling, his heart racing, but his voice remains steady. How long, Green? How long have you been feeding them, using me as a pawn in your little game? Was I just another piece on your chessboard? Green laughs, a low, almost mocking sound. Oh, come on, Marcus. You're not that naive. You know how it works. You play the game or you get played. You think I got to where I am by being some hero? I got here by making the right deals with the right people, and you were just another tool. You think they didn't know what you were doing? They knew. You were just too blind to see it. You used me, Marcus spits, his voice dripping with disgust. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew I'd be the one to uncover it, and you set me up from the beginning, didn't you? It wasn't personal, Marcus, Green says, his voice suddenly soft. I liked you, I really did. You were a good cop, but you were never going to last in this business. People like you, they can't see the bigger picture. They don't understand how the world works. You were too clean, too moral. The system doesn't work like that, Marcus. The system is broken, and if you can't play by the rules, you'll get crushed. You've already crushed me, Green, Marcus says, his voice low and filled with an icy determination. But you won't crush me anymore. Green's eyes flicker with something like amusement, like he's savoring the moment, like he's already won. You think that you're the first one to figure it out? You think I didn't plan for this? Green says, his tone dark and threatening. The thing is, Marcus, you can't win, not against me, not against the system. It's bigger than you, it's bigger than both of us. The system may be broken, Green, Marcus says, voice steady, but I'm not, and neither is the truth. With that, Marcus draws his gun, the sound of the safety clicking off, reverberating through the empty warehouse. The air is thick with tension, and for a moment neither man moves. They are caught in a standoff, each knowing what comes next. This confrontation will end one way and one way only. This was it, the last stand, the point of no return. Marcus knew what was at stake now. He had already crossed every line, shattered every illusion he had ever held. There was no going back to the man he once was, no returning to the world where the badge meant justice, not anymore. He had believed in the system, he had sworn to protect it, but in the end it had betrayed him. Now all that was left was the truth, and he would make sure that truth came to light, no matter the cost. You think this is over, don't you? Green sneers, the words dripping with condescension. You think you're going to take me down? You really think you can just walk away from this, leave all this behind like it was a bad dream? You're just as much a part of it as I am. You always have been. Marcus doesn't respond. He doesn't need to. The words are meaningless now. They are just empty echoes from a man who has lost sight of what really matters. What matters now is not the game they've been playing. What matters now is the truth. What matters now is stopping the very thing that nearly cost him everything. Green laughs softly, a humorless sound that fills the space between them. You've got guts, I'll give you that. But that's all you have left now, guts. And you're going to need a lot more than that to take me down. He takes a step forward, his voice growing colder. You should have stayed in your lane, Marcus. You should have kept playing the game. But now it's too late. You're out of your depth. No, Marcus says, quietly, his voice carrying the weight of everything he's been through, the pain and the betrayal. It's you who's out of your depth, Green. You're just too blind to see it. Suddenly, a loud bang echoes through the warehouse. It wasn't Green, it wasn't Green's shot. You thought you were the only one who had eyes in this city. Harris's voice cuts through the silence. You thought you could just walk in and take down everything I've worked for. You've got a lot to learn, Marcus. This world is built on control, and you're just a pawn in it. Marcus grits his teeth, his vision swimming as he tries to focus on Harris. His mind is sharp, though the pain is unbearable. He knows this is the moment where everything either falls into place or shatters beyond repair. You're wrong, Marcus spits out, the words burning with defiance. You think you can control me? You think you can control anyone? I'm done being part of your game. You can't win, Marcus, Harris says, his smile widening, the gun in his hand still raised. This is bigger than you, bigger than both of us. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, you'll never take me down. You'll never take down what we've built. We'll see about that, Marcus replies, his voice low but steady. The final piece clicks into place. This fight isn't about power. It isn't about winning. It's about survival. It's about doing what's right, no matter the cost. Suddenly, a flash of light, gunfire. You're not the only one who's been playing games, Harris, Jamal says coldly. You forgot something. People talk. They always talk. The final shot had been fired, but who had truly won? The battle wasn't over, it was only just beginning. What would you do if the one person you trusted turned out to be the one who betrayed you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible twists and turns.